Are people in tech inside an AI echo chamber? I recently spoke with a friend who is not in the tech space and he hadn't even heard of ChatGPT. He's a millennial and a white-collar worker and smart. I have had conversations with non-tech people about ChatGPT/AI, but not very frequently, which led me to think, are we just in an echo chamber? Not that this would be a bad thing, as we're all quite aware that AI will play an increasing role in our lives, in and out of the office, but maybe AI mainstream adoption will take longer than we anticipate. What do you think? Definitely. The tech is impressive, but anyone I've spoken to thinks of it as Cleverbit 2.0, and among the more technically minded I've found that people mostly are indifferent. Hell, IRL most people I know don't think much of it, though on HN and elsewhere online I see a lot of people praising it as the next coming of Christ, this thread included, which puts it in a similar tier as crypto and other Web3 hypertrains as far as I'm concerned. Every AI-related business idea I've seen prop up recently is people just hooking up a text box to ChatGPT's API, pretending they're doing something novel or impressive, presumably to cash in on VC money ASAP. The notion AI is an absolute fucking joke of epic proportions in its uselessness, yet they keep pushing it in every newsletter. And a funny personal anecdote, a colleague of mine tried to use Chat4 when answering a customer question. They work support. The customer instantly knew it was AI generated and was quite pissed about it, so the support team has an unofficial rule to not do that anymore. Greater than puts it in a similar tier as crypto. Comparisons between AI and crypto are horribly misguided. Emo. Is AI overhyped? Sure. However, AI/ML is creating utility everywhere in our lives: speech to text, language translation, recommendation engines, relevancy ranking in search, computer vision, etc., and seems to be getting embedded in more and more processes by the day. Crypto never amounted to anything beyond a currency for black market transaction, a vehicle for speculation, and a platform for creating financial scams. I teach college, and in the beginning days, everyone was screaming about the students will have chat write papers now. Well, apart from the fact that chat is really incapable of developing a thought, and also apart from the fact that half will fail to delete sentences like I'm a language model, so I can't. Insert gist of question here. It's painfully obvious if something is LLM generated. The moment a sentence like "it's crucial to remember" pops up, I know what this is. Then there's also the element that it always sounds like it's speaking to a child, and it avoids actually saying things unequivocally without some sort of disclaimer, as the legal department's CA filter will ensure. I remain thoroughly unimpressed by the entire venture. If this is Skynet 1.0, we're all safe for centuries to come. There's a reason why most of the former Web3 scammers now have AI inventor or ChatGPT expert in their profile tagline. They're gonna ruin even this technology with their hype marketing bullshit. The issue I have with all the hype is not the technology itself. It will stay in one form or the other as a better interface for generalized instruction communications, but rather the scams and frauds that come with it. Empty marketing promises where everybody advanced enough realizes that it cannot be true, and as a concept GPT is just throwing more average neurons to the problem instead of training more specialized expert transformers for multiple knowledge categories. Anybody remember IBM Watson? Why I always say that I don't do AI work is because people tend to think that SensorX, and neural nets that reduce a min/max problem space, already is AI. And I think it isn't. AI is weather. I think there's a meaningful difference between SOTA LLM tech and crypto. I've not yet seen a real problem which was better solved by crypto beyond just being not official money. I've already used the OpenAI API to automate several genuinely difficult things for myself. Mostly acting as a translator from natural language to structured output. I do agree it is massively overhyped and there will be an inevitable sentiment correction. Greater than, and a funny personal anecdote, a colleague of mine tried to use Chat4 when answering a customer question. They work support. The customer instantly knew it was AI generated and was quite pissed about it, so the support team has an unofficial rule to not do that anymore. My team raised a support issue with one of our suppliers due to some unexpected API behavior and got an unusually flowery reply that completely contradicted the API documentation. Fairly sure that was ChatGPT. Honestly, not that bothered about LLMs as they could be helpful in customer support, particularly when agents might not be fluent English speakers, or just help when you're trying to be polite in adverse circumstances, but some basic proofreading would help. And don't let it hallucinate APIs. My worry with AI is that even though it is very impressive and useful in many ways for real-world applications, the hype may end up making it another crypto. Crypto was a great promise when it was invented, and one can make the argument that it could have so many real-world uses, but it failed to live up to that expectation, and one of the reasons is that it was overhyped way too quickly and ultimately became a tool for get-rich-quick, speculation, scams, dark web payments, etc. AI is already much better with its use, but the hype is dangerous and we need to be careful. I see a lot of people starting xgpt.com apps and touting 10k MRR in 2 months and whatnot. This is what worries me. Every Tom, Dick and Harry is starting yet another AI tool. It can't be because they are so excited. It is because they see it as the new crypto to get rich quick. Overall, I think that AI is the new crypto. Unfortunately not because it has no real-world application, it does and is a lot better than crypto, but because of the hype and everyone trying to cash in on it. I have friends in academia who use GPT-4 to help with research-level code. TikTok just released an app where you can hum a song, it will generate a full instrumental backing track. This stuff can already do impressive things and it's only getting better. Douglas Hofstadter and Geoffrey Hinton both think that we are on the path to humans eventually being surpassed. I would urge everyone to hold back their instinctive reaction to the usual SV hype and go and try GPT-4, Claude+, Midjourney, Runway ML for a few weeks and come to their own conclusions. Funny. As someone within the crypto community, you could switch AI with crypto and the meaning would be the same to me. There's even a worse sentiment, well deserved at this time, regarding cryptocurrencies. And the answers below, reducing the industry to drugs, go in the same vein. Stuff like Chainlink working with Swift is not common knowledge, and even if it is considered as another nothing burger. Certain personalities and communication styles are able to generate useful prompts. A 10% efficiency boost that some programmers are experiencing could translate into an extra 5 weeks off if you are smart about it, so it is quite life-changing for some. I parted ways with a team last year because I couldn't take the overcomplicated, jumble mess of microservice they were pushing. Redemption by pipeline and all that. A C-suite started gushing about ChatGPT by late 2022, and that was a red flag to me. A few months after I left, they launched an AI product. I looked into it. It was just a wrapper around OpenAI API. Lol. Glad I left. I also don't get what's so great about putting another layer on top of ChatGPT and calling it a business plan. It seems like the lowest effort possible and you've done next to nothing interesting technically. Some of these projects don't even seem to do what they say they'll do well, and that's probably because they really have no control over the data provider. Maybe this is my Dropbox HN moment, but it just seems lame. To be fair, commenting on your customer support anecdote, you can get very good quality answers from chat on common knowledge items. You just have to craft the prompt correctly. I don't even start talking to it without the first instruction being answer all following questions in the shortest form possible. This cuts out 90% of the useless output such models generate. Greater than anyone I've spoken to thinks of it as Cleverbit 2.0, and among the more technically minded I've found that people mostly are indifferent. I wonder if this is a regional thing, because traveling between the US Northeast and West Coast I've found entirely the opposite. I've had non-technical friends reach out to me in a panic, worried that AI will disrupt humanity in just a few years, and even my 90-year non-technical grandmother recently remarked about her fears about what AI would bring in the next 5 years. And among technical people, ever since I posted getting an AI-related role on my LinkedIn, I've been bombarded with old acquaintances trying to get ahead of the AI boom. The funny thing is that I personally think that AI is useful but wildly overhyped right now. I do think it has some uses, but they aren't going to change the world in any fundamental way. But hey, if I'm wrong, at least I'm in the right field. It's not the current implementations that have us wigging out, it's the rate of improvement. We have no idea where we are on these curve, but if it keeps getting exponentially better, this, and alpha, etc., has the potential to greatly change society. The issue now is that for many people LLM equals AI and AI equals LLM. Meanwhile, there are tons of applications you use every day, and have for years, using AI/ML for document search, text suggestion, NLP/NLU, intent recognition, STT/TTS, image similarity/classification/search, and a myriad of other tasks. LLMs have sucked all of the oxygen out of the room, and there are tons of AI companies/engineers now who have never even heard of any of these and are doing all kinds of bizarre, wrong things to wedge these tasks into LLMs. I cringe when I see people all of a sudden jumping on the AI hype train thinking an LLM, or even the ML approaches I listed, is a universal solution to everything. They are interesting and have use cases, but please stop. Greater than I see a lot of people praising it as the next coming of Christ, this thread included, which puts it in a similar tier as crypto and other Web3 hypertrains as far as I'm concerned. Fair. I'm definitely big on where it will be in the future. Ian M. Banks' quote about minds being the next thing to gods and on the other side, but there are a lot of grifters who are easy to spot with the following thought experiment. If ChatGPT could actually, to use an example I've seen, write a best-selling novel, why is OpenAI selling you access to the API instead of writing all those books and selling them directly? Many people lose their incredulity once more than a few sentences have been read. By the time someone has read a second paragraph, they have internalized what was at the beginning, and to be told that those 2 paragraphs were fiction is now to attack the reader instead of the text. As though reading was so laborious, there's a sunk cost fallacy. It's funny you say that. Once you see a bit of GPT content, it stands out. One thing I will say is that it is a decent editor. If you feed it a document, it will produce pretty good suggestions about improvements, etc. Comparing AI with religion is ridiculous. Doesn't the next coming of Christ involve rapture and Armageddon, if you take the people who believe in him seriously, which I wouldn't recommend? And for that matter, aren't the people who believe in Christ all living in a delusional bubble inside a hermetically sealed reality-denying echo chamber of overpromised and underdelivered miracles, which has been going on for thousands of years? Can you name any AI companies who are doing anything as outrageous as declaring crackers are flesh and wine is blood, and that eating them will save your eternal soul, while calling for refusing to save the souls of anyone who supports gay marriage or abortion, and who even invented a special word, transubstantiation, that tries to explain why you shouldn't trust your own lying eyes, and instead unquestioningly believe their unsubstantiated, unscientific, easily disproven claptrap, dogma, and brutally violent fairy tales? Greater than conservative Catholic bishops had called for the Church not to offer communion to Biden or other pro-abortion rights politicians, but, in November of last year, the USP signaled an end to the debate by issuing a document on communion without mentioning the president or other politicians. Greater than transubstantiation, Latin, transubstantiatio, Greek, mu epsilon tau omicron upsilon sigma omega sigma iota sigma metausiosis, is, according to the teaching of the Catholic Church, the change of the whole substance of bread into the substance of the body of Christ and of the whole substance of wine into the substance of the blood of Christ. This change is brought about in the Eucharistic prayer through the efficacy of the word of Christ and by the action of the Holy Spirit. However, the outward characteristics of bread and wine, that is the Eucharistic species, remain unaltered. In this teaching, the notions of substance and transubstantiation are not linked with any particular theory of metaphysics. At least the AI echo chamber isn't literally overpromising salvation and eternal life like religion has for millennia, and hasn't been perpetuated by governments and wars and crusades and inquisition for thousands of years, like religion inflicts on society. AI has got a long way to go and a shitload more people to torture and kill before it sinks to the level of religion and promises of the second coming of Christ, and it's already delivering a hell of a lot more useful tangible benefits than any religion ever did or ever will. For you, I have the exact opposite experience. People around me, who are not in tech, keep talking about AI and lately especially ChatGPT, whereas serious, not only senior, IT professionals don't really. Besides the science behind it, currently it feels like the same hype as crypto a couple years before. Hype, maybe, but it's obviously not a passing fad like crypto was. Back then many people were trying to figure out what to do with it and we still don't really know. A week after ChatGPT was out and plenty of people were already using it for writing code, emails, and plenty of other tasks. It would be weird to argue that AI is not going to have a massive impact at many levels. / currently it feels like the same hype as crypto. I keep seeing this take and it doesn't make any sense to me. Some tech has obvious utility and some doesn't. For example, I knew internet, web, email, were valuable when I discovered them because accessing information and communicating with people were already things I did. The internet unequivocally made them faster and easier and often cheaper. Chatbot gave me a similar vibe. I use them to brainstorm / shape ideas, and as mentioned elsewhere, they do a great job of tasks like drafting a job ad. These are things people already do and this tech just makes it better. So people will use it. In contrast, I get why people were excited by crypto, but I don't personally know anyone whose payment / banking experience is improved by it. As an American, for example, there was nothing tangible Bitcoin made easier versus my bank account and Visa. So it was always less obvious that it was going to be a valuable thing beyond hype. Same. My friends in other white-collar-ish jobs, which require lots of writing, are smitten with ChatGPT and think it's amazing. Friends in tech are largely dismissive / critical of its abilities while being skeptical / fearful of its impact. My take is that, for most non-tech people, this is their first experience directing a computer to perform a precise task, EA programming. They're accustomed to using applications, not having a hand in making them. Maybe they've used Excel before and felt a bit of this power. But ChatGPT allows them to dream up a novel idea and get the computer to execute it, something that feels like magic to non-tech folks but is rather pedestrian for most of us in tech. Greater than people around me, who are not in tech, keep talking about AI and lately especially chat same, and they are using it. Tech tends to look at the exception cases or try to use it for exact answer types of things. But non-tech are happily using it as they would Google to come up with ideas for parties and events, write the mundane emails many people have to send, etc. I've been using it to bounce ideas off of and build things like marketing plans. Basically dynamic templates. The challenge right now is prompt engineering. Similar experience, a lot of lay people seem to be viewing it as world-changing magic, whereas that view is far more niche in tech. This feels like a common pattern. A few years back many of my non-tech friends believed self-driving cars were coming imminently, whereas no one working in tech believed that. It's not even hype like we used to see in the build-up to a big video game release. It's just cargo culting and wishful thinking. People staring into the magic mirror, hoping it will clone their desires. The phrase cargo culting or some meaningful equivalent should make a comeback. Even after the great YouTubing of technical knowledge, it is easy to find people stuck in habituated imitation of tech skills and tech talk. I love that people are interested, but cargo culting is no good water to drink from. I've seen this, but it's only the people outside tech who were into crypto, and who were invested in GameStop, who min-max credit card offers or air miles, etc. It's those who are into the latest hustle culture fad. My family, who are mostly non-technical, have heard of ChatGPT but couldn't tell you what it is or does. In tech I see a wide spectrum of skepticism, with many people using it well and getting a lot of value out of it, and many remaining skeptical or having not found a good way to integrate it into their workflow yet. The difference between AI and crypto is that AI does some existing work more efficiently, and is poised to become more efficient, while crypto does existing work less efficiently, and its inefficiencies are inextricable. I was on a shuttle bus in the early hours of this morning in regional SE Queensland, and they had some Triple M talkback show talking about it. Someone was talking about how their kid had told them that they can just get GPT to write responses to emails for them. To their credit, they said, "WTF would we want to do that?" On October 17, 1979, VisiCalc was released. I'm sure pretty much every accountant in the world got up and went to work that day exactly like they'd been doing all of their career. It probably didn't feel different for that many of them. Most of them had probably never used a computer then, and a lot of them probably didn't feel any particular need to, at least until they tried it. There were probably more than a few who were near the end of the career managed to keep doing their job the old way for another half or whole decade or so, because even when the future moves fast it's never evenly distributed. There were probably also more than a few who saw VisiCalc and bought an Apple II to start doing their own books and ended up regretting it. I don't know where we are and how things will pan out, but I think there's a parallel. Agreed. On my Twitter timeline lots of people are saying the world will be completely different in 6 to 12 months' time. On October 17, 1980, most accountants' workday still looked the same as a year before. It took decades for spreadsheets to get widespread adoption. I think LLMs are revolutionary, but our evolution will take decades to materialize. Our workdays will look completely different. In 2043, a young man in his 20s starting his career will never understand how things worked without the tech. A man in his 30s sees an opportunity to boost his career, and an older man in his 50s sees a long-fought career's worth of expertise being thrown away. You have to go back a whole lot further if you're making an analogy between chat and spreadsheets. Back to Ada Lovelace, probably. VisiCalc did already useful and already transformative, the only things missing was better user experience and adoption. ChatGPT is a nice thought-provoking toy, but not really useful other than as a novel search engine interface. There's definitely a few echo chambers around AI, but it's definitely not something that just techies are onto. ChatGPT made some waves at the end of last year. My in-laws were wanting to talk to me about it at Christmas. There's plenty of awareness outside of the tech circles, but most of the discussion, both out and in of the tech world, seems to miss what LLMs actually are. The reason why ChatGPT was impressive to me wasn't the realism of the responses. It was how quickly it could classify and chain inputs/outputs. It's super impressive tech, but it's not AI. As accurate as it may ever seem, it's simply not actually aware of what it's saying. Hallucinations is a fun term, but it's not hallucinating information, it's just guessing at the next token to write because that's all it ever does. If it was intelligent it would be able to recognize a limitation in its knowledge and not hallucinate information. But it can't. Because it doesn't know anything. Correct answers are just as hallucinatory as incorrect answers because it's the exact same mechanism that produces them, there's just better probabilities. In your opinion, how does the hallucination issue differ from the same behavior we see in humans? I don't claim or believe that any LLM is actually intelligent. It just seems that we, at least on an individual basis, can also meet the criteria outlined above. I know plenty of people who are confidently incorrect and appear unwilling to learn or accept their own limitations, myself included. In my opinion, even if we did have AGI, it would still exhibit a lot of our foibles given that we'd be the only ones teaching it. It's not AI. As accurate as it may ever seem, it's simply not actually aware of what it's saying. Conflating intelligence and awareness seems to me the biggest confusion around this topic. When non-technical people ask me about it, I ask them to consider 3 questions. Is alive? Thinks? Can speak, and understand? A plant, microbe, primitive animals are alive, don't think, can't speak. A dog, a monkey are alive, think, can't speak. A human is alive, thinks, can speak. These things aren't alive, think, can speak. I know some of the above will be controversial, but clicks for most people that agree. If you have a dog, you know what I mean with a dog thinks. Not with words, but their capable intricate reasoning and strategies. Intelligence can be mechanical, the same as force. For a man from the ancient times, the concept of an engine would have been weird. Only live beings were thought to move on their own. When a physical process manifested complex behavior, they said that a spirit was behind it. Intelligence doesn't need awareness. You can have disembodied pieces of intelligence. That's what Google, Facebook, etc. have been doing for a long time. They're AI companies. It doesn't help with the confusion that speaking is a harder condition than thinking, and thinking seems to be harder than being alive. These things aren't alive, so they can't think, but they speak, so. Not to be difficult, but wouldn't confabulating be a preferable description for this behavior? Hallucinating doesn't quite feel right, but I can't exactly articulate why confabulate is superior in this context. All you can get in a survey like this is anecdotes and opinions. This may be sufficient for your purposes. Here's my story. My sister is not technically minded. She has used chat to create a request for permit for a backyard deck to City Hall, a letter to her boss requesting attendance to a conference, and her performance reviews. Another non-techie and I use chat to help us learn French and music theory. My mother-in-law uses it to create funny rhyming stories for kids. Meanwhile, the techie friends of mine are completely ignoring it. My 2 best friends are VMware senior architect and a Java developer, tech manager, and I've been urging them for months to try it. So I personally live in a completely opposite situation to that which you describe. Smile. Techie are skeptical of the toy, and endlessly discuss its limitations and impact. Non-techies are just using it as a tool. Exactly this. I've been scratching my head about the belittlement in tech circles of the phenomenal breakthrough that chat and other LLMs represents. I think it boils down to a conflation of a few different factors. 1. Our jobs are obviously, soon, replaceable or at least massively impacted, just like all the jobs we ourselves have replaced previously. We don't like that and throw stones at it to make it go away. 2. We used to be the go-to source for all things technical. Now, soon, people can just ask chat and get a better answer. We don't like that and throw stones at it to make it go away. 3. We are, most of us, schooled to think that a script, a program, made by us, produces a predictable result. Every letter has to be carefully placed or the whole thing comes crashing down. This AI thing doesn't work like that at all, which we don't like, and etc. 4. The answers given to us by the chatbots are sometimes just hallucinations, because the tech isn't fully mature yet. We don't like that. More. Some of us techies are also using it as a tool, which is what it is, basically. For example, I had to write a bunch of Groovy, and since I don't write a lot of it all the time, I need to occasionally look up some syntax, etc. So I have the ChatGPT window open on the side, and its answers, while not entirely perfect, are more than enough to keep me going at a brisk pace. No speedbreakers like having to scroll through a bunch of nonsense search results and reading through answers on Stack Overflow to find what I'm looking for. 80 to 90% of the time, I don't even need to ask a follow-up question. The first answer is enough. It is basically like a lubricant for my thought process. I don't think it's people in tech specifically. I think that fire your workers because they're going to be replaced by AI is a great excuse for firing workers without looking bad. Thus, anyone who might use that excuse has a strong incentive to play up the potential of AI, and thus the plausibility of their excuse, regardless of the actual value of AI. Also, we're all calling it AI for some dumbass reason. That infects our thoughts with unwarranted credit toward the technology. We, some of us at least, have been calling simple logic in computer games AI. And an artificial plant means some plastic shaped like a plant. It can't do photosynthesis, it can't grow, it can't reproduce. Meanwhile, current AIs can code, explain a joke, etc. After all, an artifice, the use of a clever trick or something intended to deceive. Same experience. Talk to a young, highly educated person about ChatGPT. They had no clue what I was going on about. But the more surprising thing is that even after I explained what it could do, they weren't even slightly impressed. So it tells you wrong answers? Sounds utterly pointless. I was flabbergasted. I think we do live in a bubble. I'm sure architects and surgeons have equally exciting advances in their fields that no one else cares about. I also think the media's sensationalist phrases should be taken with a pinch of salt. The tech everyone is talking about, here's the news that got everyone buzzing, etc. I do think LLM are a significant event, but that will only be realized by building on top of it and showing rather than telling. Greater than so it tells you wrong answers? Sounds utterly pointless. I was flabbergasted. Could you tell a bit more about why this objection surprised you so much? I am often seeing this in the same tech circles that rejected the Web3 craze, and I have to confess, it does sound reasonable to me. There is a recent PR opened in the MDN Docs repository after MDN added the AI Explain button, pointing out how utterly useless a AI guide is if it gives you incorrect answers and you do not have enough knowledge to catch it. 0. Same here. My girlfriend is not impressed by GPT and its ilk at all. But I guess that for a non-technical person most things digital are a form of magic, and it is probably hard to tell the difference between the common magic of, say, a game on her phone and the heavy voodoo of an LLM. To many people, a computer program that can output in kind of natural-sounding sentences but can't be trusted to give you the right answers is not progress. I am sympathetic to that view. It's an impressive technical feat to mimic human writing and drawing with its level of fidelity, but until it can make the leap to knowing what it's talking about, and there's no clear basis for assurance that the current vector will get us there, real-world use cases are mostly limited to replacing the some of the more boring email jobs. I see more people outside of tech talking about it than within tech. Within tech, the biggest constraint I'm seeing is a failure of our imagination on how this tech could be used. So far we've limited our interactions to that which we've been shown. Chatbots, and if that's all we can imagine, then this is definitely a hype cycle. But when I speak to those outside of tech, who are not constrained to imagine what they've seen, then I see and hear much different things. It's not the second coming, it's not going to make the whole world redundant, but it is a change, and for the most part non-tech people seem more eager to get there. At least, I'm surrounded by positive people who seem to hope that the most mundane aspects of our lives will be replaced by AI, and will lead to some qualitative improvement of life, ignoring the cost of living crunch presently hitting most of them.
Hey guys, this is the Rogue YouTuber here. I recently had a big change in my life. I had a baby daughter. Here she is. If you could do me a favor and remember to hit the subscribe button and bang the bell, I'm hoping to really create a YouTube channel that really gets people excited and brings people the best, most interesting content collated from across the internet. I'm saving up to save my little girl to Carnegie Mellon Computer Science Department. So please remember to like and subscribe. See you next time.